Thank you, Steve, for the reminder, even though I have a big sticky.
That's all right. There we go. I got cheat sheet in front of me. So before we get too far, we have a couple of new faces here. So maybe we'll just go around real quick and introduce ourselves so we all know each other. I'm going to go off the order on my screen, which you guys can't see. So I'll just call your names out and just kind of say who you are and how you got here real quick and introduce yourself. So first on my screen is Brian.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to meet you all. I'm very pleased to be on this commission. That's one of my objectives in the town council, to see that all our businesses here in town not only exist but thrive. I can't wait to do the work. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Next on my screen, I have Lane.
I'm Lane Watson. I don't actually quite remember how I got here, but here I am. And I'm an attorney and I work in Hartford, but I've been working at home for the last year and a half. So.
Hi, Lane.
Next, I have Nancy.
Hi, I'm Nancy McKenney. I'm the owner of Hops 44. I'm excited to be here, being that, you know, Four Corners is such a big project going on and it's such a big part of the town that has not been developed yet. So I'm glad to be able to give my voice as well.
Hello, Nancy.
Hi.
Tony, I have you next. Oh, you're muted.
I'm Tony Moran. I'm the mayor of Mansfield. I'm not a formal member of this commission, but I am here ex officio because the commission is so important to the town's success. So welcome, everybody. Welcome, Nancy, in particular. I'm glad to have another business owner on the commission.
Thank you.
Valessa.
All right, Valessa Suderklein. This is Ash. He's not usually on, but he's joining for a little while. I am, let's see, moved to Mansfield. I rented for a year and just bought a house in August. So reasonably new to Mansfield. My husband's at Yukon and I am a battery energy storage solar wind developer. Working part-time and hanging out with this guy and excited to be working in Mansfield.
Hello, Alyssa.
Kristen.
Good evening. Welcome to the new members. I'm also a relatively new member. My name's Kristen Delay. I'm an audiologist. I'm a business owner, and I'm excited to be a part of this commission. My business is not, unfortunately, in Mansfield, but I hope to bring my business experience to this commission and to support our town.
Kristen. And I think everybody knows Cynthia and I, since we've all sat down with you guys before. So, all right. So I guess I'll take it to us to public comment. I don't see any members of the public with us here this evening, so we'll skip over that and we'll move on to the minutes of our previous meeting from January, which were included in the board packet. And I would entertain a motion to accept those minutes if anyone felt so inclined.
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Valessa. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Lane. Any discussion, edits, corrections to the minutes? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, please say aye or give us a wave.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Any abstentions?
I have to abstain. I wasn't here for the last meeting.
Okay, thanks, Brian. We'll note that. And it passes. Excellent. So we'll move into reports. First item under reports is member reports. So if any members of the commission have anything they want to bring to our attention, now is a good time for that. So anyone have any member reports? All right. We'll go into staff update and we'll turn it over to Cynthia.
Great. Thanks, Steve. Probably the big update is the Mansfield Willy Restaurant Week. So we're really excited to kick that off on Monday. And the website is taste2towns with the number 2.com. We have 17 total restaurants participating, including Hops 44. So make sure you check out Nancy's website as well. We also have Little Aladdin, Gansett Wraps, Dog Lane Cafe, Fenton River Grill, Coyote Flaco, Sticks and Stones, and Fresh Fork Cafe. And I also want to thank Steve for being a sponsor. We have a couple of Mansfield businesses that are sponsors, Mountain Dairy, Mansfield OBGYN, Stores Family Dentistry, Home Selling Team. I think I've got most of them. But it's been a great collaboration with Red City Development, working with Chris McNoby and Andrew Goot. And I really want to recognize Kathleen Patterson in our office and Margaret Chady with the town. We're really working on the promotion. So please check social media. And there's been posters going up and some postcards, Nancy, that we'll deliver to you probably tomorrow. But we're getting some really good reaction. Andrew did a promo on WFSB. So if you go on their website, you'll see that there. We did the Wayne Norman show this week on the 15th, a couple of us. So it's our first one. So we're excited. I want to recognize Tony too for all the work that she did to bring us together to start collaborating more. And so as Brian said earlier, time to go out and eat. So if anybody has any questions, let me know.
Tony?
Just a warning, if you go on the website, in order to get the menu, you have to click on the photographs, not on the wording, but the menus look fabulous. I think I'm going to be eating out for about 17 days. I don't know.
It looks
Yes.
like the timing couldn't be better too, between the weather and the COVID numbers dropping and everything. Looks really good timing on this.
I think it's gonna be a good success.
Ryan, did
And
you have something?
I did figure out, just Tony, so you know,
Yeah,
I did
I-
figure out the, sorry, Brian.
That's right. Finish up,
No,
Melissa.
okay, I did figure out the website and clicking on the images, it's reasonably intuitive, so.
I watched the piece on Better Connecticut. I didn't see a Mansfield restaurant on there. Did you?
Yeah, that was a little bit of a one-off. So
Yeah.
we weren't involved in that too much. Let's put it that way. So
Next time we will be involved. How's that sound?
and I like the way that sounds.
Yeah.
But it's been a great team effort. So then the other piece that I want to bring to everyone's attention is the Talon County Chamber of Commerce is bringing back its business showcase, which they haven't done in 2 years. So it will be April 5th at Georgina's in Bolton from 4 to 7. We had a table there. When I say we, the partnership in the town, maybe 10 years ago. So it's just something to think about. One, if businesses want to get involved, it's, I think, $200 to $250 a table. And then, question about whether we want to have a presence there as well. So I wanted to just raise that at this point. I believe it's the state is also doing Connecticut Business Day at the Bushnell, and that's on April 12th. And I just got some information about that today. Just trying to find can't find my notes on that quickly, but and then the last thing I had is Steve and Kathleen Patterson in our office. We met about the business list. Kathleen's made some great progress. Steve offered some additional help and tips, and so Kathleen's been working on that. Then I had to have her switch over to Restaurant Week, which became a higher priority. So, but she's making great progress. So stay tuned, especially for that subcommittee as well.
Great.
I'm
Thank
happy
you
to
very
answer
much.
any questions or any comments.
All right, sounds good. Any updates on businesses openings and closings? Anybody see anything new, anything that's not open? They're moving around. Cynthia, any coming soons you can disclose?
Yeah, so Brooklyn Dumplings, I ran into the owner again. I think some of you may know that Matt Ruscani was the original owner of Wingstop, Moe's and Mooyah. And so he has opened up, or he will be opening Brooklyn Dumplings in the old farmhouse crepe space. It's this whole, you really should go on their website because it's pretty cool. It's this old automat format that they're using. So he hopes to open next week. We've talked to him about helping him with promotion and press and, you know, hopefully doing a ribbon cutting too. So he's going to start with a soft opening. And then I think at the last meeting, there was some discussion about Yamato up at, on King Hill Road, and I guess that is open. So they closed for a while and they have reopened. And I think there's also been some discussion about Nature's Medicines, and I did talk to the Fine Fettle folks who do own that building. The medical marijuana business is no longer there, but they own that building and, you know, I think are holding on to it to see how things progress on the whole cannabis front. But
Do you
those
know
are the
if
only
there's
ones.
any tenants in there, Cynthia?
There
or
are
is it
still
just
some
vacant?
tenants in there. Yep. So that's all that I had.
Cynthia, I drove past, I was on Wilbercross Way this afternoon, and there was a sign outside of the building that held toast. Is there a business in there?
Yes, yes. And I'm sorry if I hadn't reported on that. So that is Whale Tea, which is the former, why am I forget? What was it? The Thai ice cream.
Wow.
I'm
So
spacing. Pardon?
is it Thai ice cream or what is it?
No, it's not. But it's the same group of folks. So it is, you know, bubble tea and other teas. Yeah, you probably noticed it because they put a blade sign out there, Tony, which that's a recent addition.
Yeah.
But they've probably been open a couple of months.
How are they doing? Do you know?
I think they're doing pretty well. I mean, there's definitely, every time I've gone in there, there's been a couple of people there. I think the tea is pretty popular. I mean, we have a couple of people that do that, so.
The only one I had for you, Cynthia, is that I think it's in the same building as Yamamoto or whatever, as Chompers downstairs where that Wally's Chicken used to be. I think that's a new one.
Yes.
All right. So that'll take us up to housing updates. Cynthia, do you want to run with that, or you want me to give that a stab, or?
If you could, because I realized I've had so many back-to-back meetings that I put my notes in another folder, which I need to find. But why don't you start and I can probably just help you out there if needed.
Sure. So it kind of doubles up with what Lane and I, we just had the Development Project Support Subcommittee meeting with Linda Painter just prior to this. And Linda gave us a pretty good update on where a couple of the housing projects stand. So the standard at Four Corners, which is the project that's being proposed for where Central Canine, Holiday Mall, and the old two-step Sundays, those three parcels right across the street from our office here on 195. The public hearing on that closed at the last PZC meeting. And so Linda thinks that they may potentially be taking action on a vote at the next PZC meeting. And that is for 392 units. And I believe it was both residential and there's some commercial space in that, Cynthia?
Yes, there's a small amount of commercial space.
Great. So that sounds like it's, well, it's continuing to move forward. We'll see how PZC feels about it at their next meeting. We had sent a letter of support several meetings back in support of that project. There is another project that's proposed for housing related, or a new one, I should say, that I don't think we've talked about in this group. right across from where Central Canine, which is the old Willard's building. There's a 19 or 20 acre piece right there, just to the right of the Nature Medicine building. And there's a new project proposed for in there. Linda said that they had a pre-meeting on that, or a special zoning meeting on that today, trying to come up with a zone that would make that appropriate. It's currently zoned RAR 90. They were hoping to get it up to PB3, which is a more intensive zone, but maybe we'll settle at something in the middle. So nothing, not too many details on that one, other than that's a project that's potentially coming down the road that we'll learn more about. She said the project that on the Villa Hills Golf Course, that development, townhouse style development, they're currently working on redesigning some issues that were problematic. So they're still trying to move that one forward. And similarly, the project that would be on the same parcel of land as Hops 44, Toast, and the gas station, but not where those are. It'd be between those buildings and where the standard is going to be. So kind of across the street from where 320 comes down and meets 195, where that intersection is now, between there and the old two steps. And that was a smaller project. Again, both residential and commercial. I think that was 100 units of residential. And I think she said about 7,000 square feet of commercial. So we still have, a number of housing projects in the works, or planned and in various stages of moving through the cycle. So still very active and still very busy. How'd I do, Cynthia? Did I get most of it?
Yes, I think just the one other one you was the commercial building
Right.
down at near the mall, but I don't know if you want to do that under 5A or here.
I had to say something for 5A.
Sorry.
Yeah, but I think that's all for housing. So any questions on any of the housing stuff, or any thoughts, or go ahead, Brian.
This question is in regard to the existing housing and store center. What is the vacancy rate up there? Anybody know? Residential housing, not commercial space.
Yeah, I don't know, Brian, what it is right now. I know that a couple of months ago, they were at, I want to say about 85% leased.
And they tend to be pre-COVID. They were the last 8 years, 100% leased almost a year in advance. Like that had some of the strongest demand I've ever seen. So yeah. Yep.
What's the enrollment trend at the University of Connecticut? I'm reading that a lot of enrollment in colleges is down. Is that the same for the university?
Community colleges have dropped, and I think to some extent the state universities are, but Yukon has such a high rate of application and such a low rate of acceptance. I don't think that they can maintain their existing freshman class pretty easily by just moving a little farther down their lists.
Thank you.
I mean, I can't speak for Yukon for sure, but that's my assumption.
The last I knew from the admissions people at Yukon that they're getting plenty of applications. They're inundated with them.
In fact, more people were applying to Yukon, and I suspected, what happens when families lose jobs is they go to state universities instead of private ones. So that may be really redounding to Yukon's benefit.
Yeah.
That was one of the trends that I definitely noticed during the last downturn. We saw a lot of clients that were coming in that, the kids had been going to, private institutions elsewhere. They were paying 70, 75, 80,000 a year, whatever it was. And then when the economy went south, it was almost like Yukon was the value play, and they had a lot of big influx. So.
But
All
it
right.
doesn't look like they're changing their, the number of beds available on campus, and they are changing the number of people they're accepting. Primarily because of issues regarding support for academics and the other parts of the program. Can't
Go ahead,
swear to
Brad.
it, but that's my, well, I'm guessing.
How about on-campus housing? What, does anybody have an idea what the vacancy rate is for the dormitories?
They complain it's high. It's never, they always fill up the first week of the freshman year, you know, first week of the semester. And then people drop out and they can't get the vacancies filled in January. That's what they're telling us.
There also seems to be some kind of slack in the system, because sometimes it's one person to a room and sometimes it's 3 people to a room. So they had a lot of forced triples, you know, prior to COVID. And then COVID, they knocked it down to 1 person per room. And now I think they're moving back to 2. At least that's what I've heard from a couple people. So, you know, what's the true occupancy is kind of a moving number, I feel like.
Yeah. Plus they're reserving some rooms for potential quarantines and contagiousness. So it's hard to tell.
All right. EDC calendar, we have that attached. I don't know if there's anything we need to discuss regarding the calendar. Unless Cynthia gives me a high sign. Saying none, I think we're good to move on. So we'll go right into our discussion items. First one is an update from the Development Project Subcommittee. Lane, you want to run with that, or? If
I
you
would
don't, I'm
run,
happy
but
to
I
do
would
it
like,
with you.
I would fall on my face. So why don't you? That'd be great.
All right, so we already talked about the projects, the standard at Four Corners, the one at the other project at Four Corners, the one across or next to Nature's Medicine and the golf course. Those were all housing related. The 2 things we discussed that were not housing related was a redevelopment of the Champagne Motor Cars website, or site, I should say. They're proposing to split the building in half, like literally clear out the middle of it, and have a double drive-through. So one, you come in, you go to one way, and one you come in, you go wrap around to the other way. And I guess we don't have drive-through regulations, so they have proposed regulations for drive-throughs so that you can kind of get this on the books. So that one is moving forward, although it sounds like it's in a bit of flux at the moment while they're working through some issues. So it's not something that's really ready for us to comment on just yet. But Linda's going to keep us posted, and as soon as Lane and I have enough information that we can bring back to you guys and show you what we've found and kind of where it stands, we will certainly do that. But for now, it's just kind of continuing to work its way through the process. The other item we discussed that was not housing related was an extension to the cannabis moratorium. So I think that was supposed to run out either this month or next month. And they're proposing to run it through the end of the year, although they're hoping to have it figured out prior to then, but that just gives them extra time, I guess. Most likely using, or most likely focusing on retail establishments with a prohibition on cultivation is what Linda passed along on that one. So again, not anything that we need to comment on necessarily, unless anyone feels so moved to do so. More of a just kind of keeping us up to date on that. Brian, did you have a question?
Linda's not here. I was just curious. I mean, where are we with the moratorium? What are we gaining? Where are we now? And why do we need more time? Would be my question.
We're under a moratorium now, and the PZC wants more time to craft regulations so that when either retail establishments or grow operations want to locate in Mansfield, they're doing it in a zone that's, I guess you could say, the most appropriate. And so whether that's she kept referencing industrial zoning. A lot of the grow operations now that are in Connecticut are in industrial zones because of other issues, if you will. We don't have any industrial zones in our town. Any land that's zoned is industrial. And then just kind of the rules and regs around retail establishments and distribution and that type of thing. So they're trying to get all that stuff in place before people just start going for it, I guess is my understanding. I don't know if Tony or Cynthia can add to that.
What they're saying is when they draft, it takes time to draft the regulations. When they draft them, they have to have public input, and that's going to take time. So that's what I've been hearing.
Oh, thank you, Tony. That was a big thing. She said that Linda's trying to come up with some type of survey that can be attributed to our residents to get their input on how this should be handled, to try to get as much feedback from the community as they can prior to drafting the regulation.
Are there any plans to add an industrial zone? Wouldn't be a bad idea.
I don't know if we have.
There was an industrial zone down around Pleasant Valley Road, but there was so much objection from people in that area that they moved away from it. I think there's, under the zoning for Four Corners, there's an opportunity to do some clean, light industrial stuff. I'm not quite sure what. Interestingly enough, there is permission for assembly in the mill in Mansfield Hollow, which is not only a village, but a historic village, and it's in the mill. So I don't quite know what the zoning manipulations that led to, but anyway, that's there.
I actually saw a sign on that mill a while back. It looked like there was a plan to kind of have a wine tasting room or a wine house. Where is that? What state?
The regulations allowing for the serving and tasting of wine were amended both by the planning and zoning and by the town council. There was a part of that permitting thing that required an ordinance change. So we did that, and apparently they're going to be looking at doing some kind of wine tasting in the mill. Don't know what it is yet, but I mean, I don't know.
That's in my neighborhood. I'll be happy to go have a glass of wine down there.
Yeah, well, it used to be my neighborhood too, and I'd be happy also.
Excellent. I think that's all we had for our committee report, right, Lane? Anything I missed?
I think that's it. I will say that one thing that I learned that I wasn't aware of before is that the area down by Eastbrook and Champagne Motors and all that is the only one that's zoned for having drive-throughs. Since there are a couple at Four Corners now, I didn't realize that that wasn't zoned for that, or that was the only area. Just interesting note.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one at Four Corners got to be there because there was an existing building.
Mm-hmm.
Not that they built a drive-through.
Right. All right. So that's it for our subcommittee update. That takes us to a quick overview of the presentation to town council. So every year, EDC goes before town council and gives them a quick update of what we did over the last year, just kind of summarizing the highlights. So they're kind of up to speed, just to kind of keep that line of communication open. That was something that dated back to Matt Hart and his recommendation that we try to make sure we're keeping everybody informed of what we're working on. So Cynthia and I did a quick kind of conceptual run through of it. We don't plan to change too much from what we did last time. Pretty much the same kind of format. But if anybody has any thoughts or suggestions or recommendations, you can bring those up now. We're still waiting to hear from Brian as to what what town council meeting makes the most sense for us to present at. So it may not be the next couple, it might not be for, a month or two. So we may have more time to go over it, but in case anybody had any thoughts, we wanted to make sure we put on the agenda just so you guys could bring those up.
And I
If
would
not,
just
we'll
say,
just run
Steve-
through it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So yeah, if anybody has, I gave you a lot of information. If, as I mentioned at the end of the document, we'd be a little more heavy on photos and bullet points with text in the notes, so it won't be too text heavy, but this gives you a feel for, what we would go over. We might organize it a little bit differently than in the past, but generally, as Steve said, it'll be pretty much the same. And I'll work through with Steve and Kristen to prepare for that once we hear it. It probably will be, I assume, a date in March, because I think the budget presentation from Ryan is March 30th, Tony and Brian, if I remember seeing.
I forgot what the date is, but it is usually the end of March.
Okay. All righty, that takes us to the referral from planning and zoning regarding the moratorium on the cannabis establishments, which we kind of briefly touched on earlier. Cynthia and I put this in here as a placeholder just to remind ourselves that we had a presentation from Linda, it was 3 months ago now. At that time, she had asked if we had any feedback as a commission as to what these regulations should look like, and we all kind of shrugged and said, well, what are your thoughts on what they should look like? And we'll give you our feedback on those thoughts. So that's kind of what they're doing, is they're going to try to draft something and bring it back for everyone's input. But if anybody has any thoughts now, we certainly don't need to send anything along, but if you do, this would be our opportunity before they start the crafting process. All right. You know
Steve,
what?
can we go back? Yeah.
Yep. Oh, I skipped right over the champion award. Whoops. Look at that. I was getting ahead of myself. All right, Cynthia, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So first of all, I apologize because I didn't cross out hero on a couple of them and put champion, but we had talked about this at the last EDC meeting. So we ran this idea by you all while Jennifer Kaufman, the town of Mansfield, who staffs the Ag Committee, was doing the same. So the Taste of Mansfield staff team met, we tightened this up. And what we thought would be the easiest thing to do was, once we get applications in for our champions or champion, depending on how many, that we could get a delegate from the EDC and from the Ag Committee to act as the group that would review the application. So I'm looking for a volunteer who's interested to, this would probably be just one meeting with the Ag Committee rep and the Taste of Mansfield staff. So we've laid out a little bit of a schedule. We might be backed up a little bit, but hoping to release this hopefully next week if we can, and then have the applications be due on the 15th of March. And then the group would meet probably on April 4th at the Taste of Mansfield meeting. So another new initiative, pretty excited about it. I think there's a lot of people that would qualify for this award, and we put 3 different categories, so it's pretty open in terms of who can apply and who can be chosen. So if you want to think about it, that's fine too, but if you think you're interested, it's a pretty easy lift, let me know.
Anyone want to volunteer while we're here? They have an email? All right. So you can just let Cynthia know if you have any interest in that. Cynthia, on my agenda, it says page 1 of 2, but I don't have a 2. So do you have yours? You can let me know what's next on the list here. Oh, you're muted, Cynthia. Oh,
Sorry about that.
that's okay.
So on the four-town economic vitality plan implementation EDC member involvement, I just wanted to, Ryan Aylesworth and Kara Workman from Yukon and myself are the 3 representatives to the four-town steering committee, Bolton, Coventry, Mansfield, and Tolland. We are looking for more EDC involvement in terms of whether it's some of our subcommittees that are a little bit on hold while we're working through trying to get through meeting with different stakeholders, or to just attend the meetings. So you can attend the meetings even if you're not obviously one of the 3 of us that are the official steering committee members. We generally meet once a month, 2 o'clock. I think it's often on a Wednesday, and the meetings get done within an hour. But it's just a really good way to get to know what other folks are doing. We've had the heads of the chambers there. We're going to have Yukon Extension, hopefully next month. We had Greg Lewis from the Connecticut Small Business Development Center. So it's, yeah, it's just something I wanted to put out there, and I can send you a little more information, perhaps some previous agendas, if this is something you're interested in getting involved in. I know everybody's busy, but I just wanted to throw it out there one more time. I know we talked about it a couple months ago, but we have some new members, so.
Is it always, it's always 2 on Wednesdays?
Usually, Melissa, yeah.
So maybe what we can do, Cynthia.
I'd be happy to help with that.
Oh, great. Thank you, Nancy.
Yeah, I can do that.
Awesome. That's great.
Great.
All right, I think I found my old agenda here. So after that, I have update on the Yukon Town Collaboration Framework Committee. So I don't know if Tony, you want to give that update?
Well, we met today. It was a truncated meeting because the number of important people weren't there. We're beginning to feel some pushback on housing issues from Yukon, and although they have assured us they will not be interfering with town decisions on housing, I have a feeling that some of our antagonists are being heard a little bit more than they were a month or so ago. But nothing has been set in stone, so they aren't really prepared to talk to us. There is some economic development happening potentially around the autonomous drift car track, which would be on Mansfield Depot land. There's a lot of negotiation around that happening right now or in the next day. So we'll see what that produces. Other than that, we're going to come back next month, I guess, with names of a subgroup that will be working on actually drafting a framework for economic development between the 2 towns. So we'll see what that produces. I think the real thing that's happening right now at the university is that they're trying to figure out how the new president is going to function and what her goals are. I suspect she may be a candidate for the full-time job. She hasn't declared, but there are people in that group who are willing to put their money on it. Others aren't. So who knows where things are going. They're still very much in transition. But I think we can say that they have decided that the way they will compete with the town on housing is to improve the housing on campus, which would be helpful. I mean, you know, we don't want to lose the high quality students who reside in town. We don't want them to take over our neighborhoods either. There is plenty of, you know, there are about 3,000 students who live in town now, undergraduate and graduate. Some of those can't go back to campus because there's no graduate housing, although the university is beginning to make noises that they might be building some in the future. So some of the promises are holding, others may be a little shakier. The area where there's the most controversy, I think, is the development on King Hill, which is what a private developer is proposing, a private-public partnership with the university to build an actual dormitory, not an apartment house that is rented to students, but an actual dormitory. And since it would require Yukon sewage and water, Yukon has some real say over that development. And we'll see where it goes. They're still negotiating.
Hey, Tony, question about the development down by the Depot campus. Does that add anything to the grand list of the town, or is that all
Well, that
under pilot
depends.
stuff?
If they decide to lease it to this developer, then it doesn't really help us. If they decide to sell the land to the developer, yes, but that's all part of the negotiation.
Tony, voice your support for adding to the grand list.
Yes.
Yes, understandably. Do we have any control over what happens there either way? I guess if it's sold and it's part of the grand list, we do. Do we have any control over it if they lease it?
Not much. Not much. And we haven't in the past had control over what Yukon does on its campus. You know, we bring pressure, we politic, we lobby, but as a state agency, the town has no control over. So we'll see. The King Hill property is on private land. So unless Yukon buys it, which I don't think they're going to do because the last time they did it, we raised sand.
Lane, if we did have some type of control or input on that, did you have any thoughts on that?
No, other than I just wanted to understand what our role would be in it. You know, like I think I mentioned either at the last meeting or maybe a couple meetings before at the water committee, Yukon did not vote in favor of the project down on 195, but they abstained from voting. So I have to say that the tepid or maybe somewhat neutral attitude they're displaying at the moment does not surprise me.
Well, I think the board has instructed the administration that they're not to take any real action to stop projects that are clearly town-based projects. The issue on King Hill is that the sewer pipes that go past that site are not owned by the town, but are owned by the university, and they can decline the permission to link onto them because they are their pipes.
That is unbelievable.
No, it's part of the university owns the sewage treatment plant, and it owns pipes that run through campus, and they own pipes that run directly to the sewage treatment plant. The rest of the pipes, they also currently own Eastwood and Westwood pipes, as they have always have, and we declined to take ownership of those because they're very much in need of repair, and we wanted to let the university bear the cost of that rather than having them pass it on to us. So, but the original agreement is that they can decline direct connection to university-owned pipes, but they have no say over connections to town-owned pipes, which is almost everything within the town.
On the north side of town. The south side of town is Wind and Water.
Wyndham Waterworks, yes.
And we're capped at a certain threshold of gallons per day that we can put through there.
Yeah, but we're only using about a quarter of that now.
All right.
So Tony, what you're saying is they could use that as leverage to stop the private development if they so wish.
Only the development that would require direct access to the pipes owned by the university. And right now, the only development that's being proposed that would do that is the one on King Hill.
That's so unfortunate.
It's bottleneck is probably not the right word for it, but one of the problems with talking about sewers is the puns are terrible. But anyway, we could not tell them what they did with their own pipes. You know, what can you say? We can certainly, and by the way, this is a 5-year agreement that is coming up for renewal in the next year. So there's going to be continuing negotiation about this.
Alessa, do you have something?
I have a question, and I'm not trying to open a huge can of worms, but I am curious. I live on Davis, and it's a block that's got a lot of renters, and then a lot of people who've been here forever and have lots of stories. How long has this dynamic been playing out?
The renters in town,
Yeah.
at least a decade,
Okay.
probably 15 years or longer. I've had an apartment in my house for 50 years, and there have been undergraduate and graduate students in my apartment for all those times. The rate of purchasing private single-family homes to turn them into rentals has escalated dramatically within the last decade.
In a decade, though. Okay, got it.
Any other
And
questions?
Brian could probably attest to this with the opening of the Oaks. A lot of those private apartments and private houses had trouble getting filled.
I'm sorry, Tony, could you repeat that?
I just said you could probably attest to the fact that once the Oaks opened, it was harder to get 100% rental rates in private homes, in single-family residences and the other apartment
It
complexes.
was actually the opposite. I mean, the rent was so high, our place is filled up.
That's interesting because I've seen rental for rent signs around town that I never saw before that was open.
It depends how competitive you are, really.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know this, Brian owns a very large number of rental apartments in Mansfield Center and Mansfield Hollow. So he is also one of our primary business owners. And I will say those are apartments that have always been very well managed and maintained.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. I've said it for years. Your father-in-law didn't believe that I thought that, but I did.
He's a tough one to convince.
Yes.
All right. I think that, Cynthia, is that the end of our discussion items?
Yes.
All right. So we have the communications that were attached in our packet. Our next meeting is scheduled for March 17th. We'll bring a draft of the EDC proposal or presentation at that point. Anything anybody wants to bring up for the good of the order? All right, with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
I'll take the motion from Nancy and the second from Brian. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, guys. Have a great evening.
Nice
Thank you.
meeting you
Thanks,
all.
everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.